I'm so excited to have you here on Night Unfiltered and
Thanks
have
for
this
having me.
conversation and like girl talk. And so I've always been intrigued with artists and their whole process. So I want to talk about your career, how you decided it to make this your career. But one thing I really want to touch on also is that how you left corporate life and decided to strike out on your own. I mean, first of all, to be picked to be what was it, the creative director of New York Times, like number
Well,
one.
there's many, I was one of the,
But still, that's
yeah.
New York Times. That's really
New York
prestigious.
Times is a huge institution. There's so
That's
many people who work there.
huge. I mean, that's just wild. So I really want to hear about it. So, but first, tell me how you got introduced to art.
Art is something that kind of just has been around my entire life. My dad's a really great artist. He never pursued it professionally, but he was always drawing, painting something. Like he's the kind of guy when we went on vacation, he would, like sit and just like sketch the houses in Greece that he sees from where he drinks his wine or, stuff like that. So I kind of just grew up around it. It's how I learned to speak. He would draw little things and we would name them. And then, it was, so I'm kind of, I think it's just, it wasn't, I don't even remember making the decision that that's what I want to do. It was just always around me and always something that I, knew I wanted to go into. There's some construction happening. Can you hear the banging?
Yeah, no problem.
I might have to take you outside if it gets too bad.
Yeah. No worries.
Just, if it's distracting, let me know.
I noticed that you are Swiss, right?
I am.
And then you came to the United States to pursue your art career.
Like, yeah, I came for college, actually. I moved here for college. I moved to New York for college when I was 21. But yeah, born and raised in Switzerland. I didn't know anyone. I just moved to New York and I, came to go to school, and my plan was always to go back. I always kind of, I told my family and my friends, I'll be back and, see you in 4 years.
Yeah.
And it just never happened.
And you're in LA now, right?
I live in LA now. Yeah. I ended up being in New York for 7 years and I've been in LA now for the same amount of time. So it's been quite a while.
So walk me through. I want to hear about how you got this job at the New York Times.
The New York Times happened because it was one of my teachers, I think it was my senior year graphic design teacher, who recommended me. These companies sometimes scout students and reach out to faculty to see if there's anyone that they recommend. So it was a chance thing. I kind of lucked out. It was my first gig out of college, which was part of the reason why I ended up staying in New York after college. I was like, I can't pass. Right. I need to do this.
What was your job? What did you do?
So the job, I was I was an art director in the department's called marketing services. So it was very kind of geared towards advertising clients and towards, I was working with the wine club, New York Times wine club, and all of these, the book club and all of these little sub departments that they have. And it was a great experience. I, met some really good people. It was a really wonderful experience for me to see into that corporate world, but it also showed me that it's not what I'm meant to be doing. I'm not cut out for it. It was, I think at the end of the day, any sort of corporate job has hierarchies and politics and, it just kind of, I knew if I did this for too long, it would probably kind of damper my creativity.
So how long were you there?
A couple of years. Not a long time at all. That's how long I lasted.
I mean, you hear about people who switch gears, right?
Yeah.
They find a new vocation or a new career path, but then to strike out on their own, right? Yeah. I mean, was it scary?
So there was something that happened before I left the corporate world, and it was that a big brand, Obey, they reached out to me and they wanted to feature me as an artist. They wanted to do an artist collaboration. And I was initially connected to them to possibly do some freelance graphic design work. Mm-hmm. And the head of women's looked at my portfolio, just oh no, we should do a proper artist collaboration. She's like, you're not a graphic designer, you're an artist. The first time that I kind of heard that. And then this collaboration came out and I had such a positive response and it felt so good. It just felt so good to be able to contribute to a project and not have to sort of like, you know, bend it to fit a client brief, but I could just do whatever I wanted. And it was just such a nice experience that it sparked this idea of like, oh, I can actually monetize this. I can do this. I can, you know, make work and apply it to something, and I can work with brands and bring my art to the table, and they actually like it, and that's what they want to see.
Well, how did you like, did you reach out to brands, or did brands reach out to you?
It always kind of just formulated. It's really interesting. Like most brands that I've worked with have reached out to me, and you know that like sometimes there's a lot going on and sometimes there's not that much going on. And I have moments where I you know have a freak out and I'm like, oh, I gotta make some, you know, like I gotta make something happen.
Right.
And I start thinking about, you know, I was like, oh, maybe I should hit up some brands, or like hit up some people and see what's going on. And then it usually just falls into place. Like it usually just comes together. It's pretty amazing actually how that's happened.
Yeah, that's really cool, because I looked and saw that you have collaborations with like Topshop, and you're making like these graphic tees, and that's like, I mean, basically international clients, right?
Yeah.
And so you are like traveling all over the world.
Well, not anymore right now, but
right. Pre-COVID. But it seems as though you were like international. You're like all over the place.
Yeah.
And so these collaborations, I've read that you first, you know, tell me about the process. You first will meet with the clients, and then they're like, okay, do your magic. Is that how it goes?
I think the way it kind of usually goes is that I make personal work. I have shows, I sell my work, right? So like it's all centered around just whatever I'm working on. And then when I work with a brand or a client, we figure out ways of how can we find new ways to apply this work to whatever platform they're working with. So for example, AG is a brand I worked with a couple of years ago, and we did a little capsule collection. I applied my artwork to their clothing, right? So we kind of figured out new ways together, which is something I really like, when there's a new perspective on what I do as well. Because
so do you like that part? It seems as though like you have like these, I don't know what the average time is for your projects, but you're kind of like in and you're out. Have you ever, you know, maybe been asked or offered like, hey, why don't you stay here? And then
I've never been offered that.
Would you be open to that?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's put it out there. Let's get that out into the universe.
Let's put it out. Yeah, right? Why not? You know, why not?
Right, so that you could stick with the line and then just like handle their, you know, be like a creative director, right? For a fashion line.
Yeah, or even like a consultant, or you know, like that. I would love to do that actually. That sounds great. Yeah.
See, I just put like a little spark of idea.
It's just a new idea. That's
cool idea. So for inspiring artists, you know, what would you recommend their path be? I mean, you are an inspiration in the sense you've worked with a lot of brands, you've had showings, you travel the world. This is like, you know, this is an artist. This is the life of an artist. So what would you recommend for, you know, a person on the scene trying to follow in your footsteps?
Yeah, I think it's really important to remind yourself that it's about the work and the fun that you have when you're working. And it doesn't matter so much. I just had a conversation with someone this morning about this. It doesn't matter so much how it's perceived, what people think about it. What matters is that it's therapeutic. It's fun to make. It's, you know, you access a part of yourself that maybe you couldn't without anything creative. And that's what it's about. So I think, you know, like coming back to developing whatever you want to make is that's the most important thing, because that ultimately informs what everything else looks like, right? That informs like what kinds of people you work with, what kinds of shows you want to have, what kinds of whatever, you know, whatever the ripple is. Right. That like that centerpiece of it is really personal. And to not lose sight of that, I think is really important.
Well, you know, when we talk about art, it's upon the eye of the beholder, right? And have you ever had someone who basically is like, I don't like this, you know?
You know, not to my face.
Not
I
to
don't
your
know.
face.
But I also, that's kind of a good segue into beauty as well, because art and beauty in that respect are really similar.
Mhm.
And I think that it matters more, to me, it matters if I like what I do.
Right.
It doesn't really, if someone really hates something I've made, I don't, there's so many factors involved in that. Like it might trigger something that they see in it that I didn't mean to put in there.
Right.
But it reminds them of their like ex-boyfriend's, artwork that he had on his, whatever it might be. I don't know, like someone's reaction to what I'm making ultimately doesn't really say so much about me or about the work. As long as I feel good about it, as long as it fulfills that, that like all I care about is that I have that creative flow and that I'm able to process my emotions. My work's really emotional. My work's like very much, like if I feel a certain way, you'll probably see it.
Do you find, like in with beauty, there's like an evolution, right? That people are always improving or changing. Has there been an evolution in your artwork that you can kind of track, or you can even pinpoint? I know how I was feeling when I look at this, because it like, it just evokes something. You can just sense it.
100%. It's kind of like songs, I sometimes listen to songs and I'm like, oh yeah, summer of 2005, like you remember where you were. And yeah, when I look at my work, I know exactly when I made it. I know how I felt. Like sometimes it's even, there's a series of stuff that came out of a really difficult time. And when I look at it, I'm like,
Really? So it just kind of like reminds you, and it just like brings back all those feelings.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So then I wonder, can you fake it? Like if somebody wants like an angry piece, and if you're like really happy, can you have like an art piece that's like shows emotion of anger? Or are you just like, you know what, I have to like draw from my heart?
No, I think it's pretty honest. I think you kind of get wherever I'm at. Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, I can't fake it.
I can't really do that. But what I have done before is when someone wants to actually commission a piece and they say they've seen something and I've already sold it and they're like, I really like this one, but I don't have it anymore. I always offer to do something in a similar vibe. Like that I can do.
So you can kind of recreate it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, okay.
A little bit. That's actually, sometimes it's helpful, if someone really responded to a certain piece, I can kind of like tap into that a little bit and make something. Yeah.
Well, you're absolutely gorgeous. So the art and it's like you're an influencer and it looks like you're a fashion model.
Am I? It's so weird because I never like thought of myself as an influencer at all.
What are you talking about? Are you crazy?
No, not at all. It's weird too. It's weird too because that's kind of like the last thing I want to do is influence people. You know what I mean? It's like, inspire, yes, totally. But it's like I don't want to influence anyone.
You're like, no. This is what I'm doing, and if it's inspiration, then that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I mean, like literally, you look like a fashion model, and when you take a look at your photos, and it looks effortless. So speaking of effortless, and I always like hear artists say like, oh, well, I don't think about anything. I just do it. I just like put something on and I'm out the door. Talk to me about your beauty routine. What is it?
My routine. I see a facialist who's really helped me. I used to have acne. I used to have like super dry skin. I had like crazy adult acne, which is the weirdest thing ever. It's like around 30, I suddenly just looked like a teenager, but not, it was the weirdest thing. And so I've dealt with some insecurities when it comes to my skin and my like routine. So I kind of almost like less is more is kind of my mantra.
Okay.
So I use like really natural stuff. I just keep it moisturized. I keep my face like,
And do you have favorite products that you're using?
I do. I'm using Lena Hansen is also a company I've worked with. I love her product because it's really, it's like everything I care about. It's all organic, it's all natural, it's, fair trade, it's recycled. It's just like everything is wonderful and the owner's wonderful as well. I use some skin worship stuff, which is where I go for my facials. And then when it comes to makeup, I do keep it pretty light. Like I have a really nice sort of like tinted moisturizer that has a what's it called, a sunblock.
Okay.
And then yeah, I mean, I put a little blush and an eyeliner if I want to, like, you know, go for it.
Ready to go.
Ready to go.
So I want to pick out one thing that seemed really interesting when you said something that I care about, that it's like clean and stuff. And I read about your collaborations that you try to, I don't know if it was like pick brands or working with people that they align with your beliefs,
Yeah.
right? That are like what's important, so that, you know, are you picky with the clients, and how do you make sure that they're aligning with what you believe in?
Yeah, it's mostly sort of company philosophies that I look at. I think when you have an initial call with a client, you can usually tell. I don't know if you feel the same way, but I think it's pretty obvious pretty quickly if you vibe with someone or you don't. And I've had this a few times. There was a project a few years ago, and I had an initial call, and I hung up the phone, and I was saying to my project manager, I was like, "That's going to be a pain in the ass. Like, that's not fun," because I could just feel it. Like something just didn't feel right. I was like, "That's going to be really difficult." I was like, "But it's a lot of money, and you know, like it'll be over in a week. I'll suck it up. I'll just like do it."
Right.
And it ended up being absolutely horrible. Like everything that could go wrong went wrong. I had to end up like paying my assistant out of pocket. They changed it like halfway through. It was just like awful. And I had to laugh about it because I finished it, and it took weeks and weeks and weeks. It wasn't what I thought at all. And it was finally done, and I laughed, and I was like, I knew it, you know? I was like, all that tells me is I can trust my gut. And that's kind of how I do it. It's just, if it feels good, I'm down, and if it feels off, I stay away from it.
Yeah, it's like the philosophy, and like going back to your beauty products, like you talked about, like all of, you know, it's clean and they're recycled, like their packaging. So you're really mindful of the type of products that you actually like are using.
I try to be, yes.
Right. And then it's like, okay, you went to go see this facialist, and having adult acne is such a common theme with women. It's crazy, right? Like I thought I was over this, like what's happening? And I guess it's like a rebalancing of hormones, or
probably.
I don't know what's happening.
Probably.
But you know, then all of a sudden it's like rediscovering your skin and like kind of tweaking it. And so what did you use before? Like, did you always use clean products, or what did you have to tweak?
I'm trying to think. I think for me it was more of a like a nutritional change that ended up helping. It was kind of more of a deeper thing, which was good, you know, because ultimately the acne was like, hey, you know, there's something's not right. Listen, you know, like listen up. We're trying to detox here.
Yeah. So I know that people talk about nutrition, you know, and it's kind of funny that like people talk about the gut, right? How you gotta like detox, and then you gotta listen to your, not really just listen to your gut, but like literally listen.
Bloating is also a really common issue around, you know, among women. Like lots of women, because that's like something I had a big issue with. It's just like these random like bloated stomach, you know.
Yeah.
Something's not right, you know. It's like my face is breaking out and not feeling right, like something's off. And I started talking to people, and everyone's like, me too, yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. So it was, you know, it's a common thing.
Right. So it's like kind of like balance. I mean, I know that I just, you know, when I'm always bloated. Oh, by the way.
There you go.
I eat like a pea, I'm bloated. Like,
yeah, there you go. Yeah. We all are.
Right? I just remember when I was younger and I used to be able to eat anything, and it's like, nothing. Now, forget about it. And then, even forget about like what I'm eating, and then it shows in my skin. It shows in my skin if I'm stressed out, if I don't get enough sleep, if I'm eating junk food.
I was gonna mention that one. Yeah. No, I know. I know what you mean.
It's it just sucks. It's like having like a balanced lifestyle of just like, okay, eating right, using the clean products. I mean, clean products is like, and clean beauty is now the trend. And it's
Good.
like,
It was hard to find, you know, like 10 years ago, it was harder to find.
yeah. And so now I'm being interested, and I'm wondering, like, some people, they have a fear of like, does clean beauty really even work? If you have problem skin. What was your life like during COVID as an artist, and like having showings and traveling? What did you do, and how did you still connect to clients?
I had a really busy year in 2019, and I kind of decided that it was time to spend more time in the studio and just kind of like focus on my, like, what I was talking about before, just come back to the center, work on my stuff, create a new body of work, maybe have a show, just be a little more in my workspace again. And I had a few projects lined up, and then when lockdown happened, all these projects went away. And I had an initial freak out because it's like, that's my income, right? Like,
Yeah.
And then I realized I kind of asked for downtime, and I was like, well, here it is.
You asked the universe, and the universe gave it to you.
Delivered, So the lockdown time, also funny enough, the first weeks of lockdown, I'm an introvert. I'm pretty, like that's kind of what my life looks like anyway. I was like, everyone's like, oh, quarantine. I'm like, I guess that's kind of what I do normally, I spend time with my husband. I like work I work alone. I don't go out that much. It was kind of okay.
Yeah.
And as it went on, it also forced me to find some new ways of entertaining myself, find some new, like avenues of bringing in inspiration, finding new platforms of like showing my work or communicating with people, or collaborating, whatever. And it's been kind of okay for me.
Look at the bright side of being in quarantine and lockdown. Like, people had to start thinking about original ideas, like how to make that shift and survive. So was there anything that like maybe you thought you were never going to do, but then you started doing, or it didn't even occur to you to do it, and it's like, I think I can do this now? Like, what was introduced to you that was new?
It gave me a space of time. It was almost like I always try to find ways of looking at situations in a positive way, right? So I was kind of like, all right, work's not really happening right now in a commercial way or in a monetary way. People are kind of not happening, it's like anything social is not happening. So I was like, how can I like take this time and find something good in it? And it gave me, it's almost like gifted time. It was kind of like a year where nothing was happening anyway, so I didn't have to have FOMO in any way.
Right.
And it gave me a sense of calm, and I did a lot of just digging. Like, it kind of allowed me to have a safe space where a lot of stuff was coming up. A lot of like emotions started processing, and I was able to just kind of work with it, and really let go of some stuff that no longer serves me, like some patterns that I had that I didn't like that were going on. And I did, like I worked with some therapists and with some people, and kind of took the time to just for some like digging and self-care.
Well, and speaking of digging, I did a little bit of digging on you. So how was it being in the limelight, having paparazzi like follow you around?
Yeah, that was horrible.
you know what I mean? It's just like, your head is down, and you're just like,
That was a weird time in my life. It was a very strange time in my life. And I dated someone later on who was also probably more famous, and it freaked me out so much that I just like, there's no evidence anywhere of us ever even being together, because I just like, it triggered so many.
I mean, because you mentioned that you're an introvert, and I'm like, oh my gosh, if you're an introvert, how did you feel when all eyes of the world were on you?
Yeah. I felt very exposed, but also I felt really helpless, because there was a lot of, I started to kind of see through the whole like rumor mill, and how things are kind of just blown out of proportion, and things that are just flat out false are spread and printed and picked up by newspapers. So the whole, how stuff travels these days and doesn't get fact checked. there was a fake Twitter account that was quoted in one of the newspapers about a rumor. So it was just like, oh, and here's a quote from me. That's not me. That's so weird. Like, did you guys check at all?
You know?
It was just it was a pretty bizarre time.
So it almost seems like you have like no control. You have absolutely no control.
You do not. You do not. Should I move this outside? It's a bit loud.
Want to?
Let's do it. Hang on.
Take us on a tour.
Try this.
We were talking about paparazzi and then you still being in the press and having control over your own narrative.
Well, yeah, more so than it used to be. Yeah. There's a big difference between actually speaking to someone and being able to say what you want to say, and someone just taking a snippet that, you know, might be a rumor or might not be a rumor and twisting it and bending it. And, you know, there's a very big difference in how that feels. I love talking about work or even, you know, like life in general, or I like having interactions with people like we are doing right now. Like, that's a very pleasant thing to me to do. I'm opinionated, you know, like I like talking about stuff.
So did it make you more introverted, or were you always introverted after being in the limelight?
I think I always was an introvert, but it probably made me shut down. Like, that time made me shut down. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Were you still, you know, doing your art, continuing your work?
Yeah, always. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always interesting to me for a person to, you know, be in the limelight and be followed by paparazzi of like, how do you still maintain your own privacy and your sanity, you know, because like you said, there are falsehoods, there's rumors, and then people are judging you even before you open your mouth, right?
Yeah. I think it's difficult. I think I never want to be someone who's recognized on the street. That's just, you know, that's the absolute definition of hell for me. Yeah, I think it's difficult. I think if you're that kind of famous, like some people are, and you can't go get a coffee without people recognizing, I think it's really easy to get paranoid as well. You know, you never know. Someone's looking at you. You never know. Are they trying to take a photo in 5 seconds? Do they recognize you? Do they not know who you? Are they just looking at you because you're wearing something cool? Like, you don't know, right?
Right.
It can really fuck with your head, I think.
Yeah. I want to go back to, let's try to give some advice to some of these newbies. Do you have an agent? Should they get an agent?
No, I don't. I never had an agent. I don't know. I think it depends on what you want to do, you know, like for certain people, I'm sure an agent is a great thing to have.
There has to be a amount of self-promotion. You know, are you using Instagram? Are you harnessing social media to get your name out and to get your artwork out in pieces and showcase your artwork? When the galleries were shutting down, like, what's an easy way for new artists to get their artwork seen?
Yeah. I mean, I'm in a fortunate position because when everything shut down last year, I actually just posted some work and I ended up selling a few bigger pieces just because I posted them. So I'm in a fortunate position because I do have some eyes on my account. That's kind of the only, that's the big plus. That's the big, you know, advantage that I think social media gives. And I like that. I definitely use that. I think it's a good way of connecting with other artists too. I think it's a good way of connecting with like-minded people, and for people who are starting out or for people who want to get their work out, I think it's also a good way of just like, look what the galleries are doing, look what people are doing whose work you really love. Who are they talking to, who are they working with, and then kind of through that it gives you a pretty good picture of, you know, who to reach out to or who to keep an eye on. And
are you pretty active on social media?
No. I think I've lost a lot of followers the last 2 years because I just really don't care that much. It's the same thing to me. It's kind of like, I want to show my work. I also, you know, I get exponentially more activity when I post a selfie versus my work, and it's probably partially the algorithm, which annoys me too.
Yeah. So they say that if they show a face, the algorithm will push it, you know?
Exactly. Which I think is kind of, you know, that's kind of shitty. That's kind of manipulative. So ultimately I come back to, as long as it's fun, you know, I like sharing my work. I like showing my work. I like throwing a selfie in every now and then because that's also part of who I am. So, you know, if someone wants to follow me, great. And if someone doesn't want to follow me, great. I don't, you know, it's fine.
Yeah, it's your choice. And if you don't like my message, you can just scroll, keep on scrolling.
Okay. That's okay too, right? So yeah, so I kind of just do whatever I want to do, and you know, and wherever it goes, that's where it needs to go. That's okay.
So I always like to end our talks on what exciting new projects do you have on the horizon?
Yeah. I actually have an exciting project that just started. Someone reached out to me and asked if I wanted to do something for Art Basel in Miami this year, and I haven't been actually in a few years. So we're gonna work with a new platform called Her Click, and they're featuring a lot of like female artists, and I think it's former Paddle 8, someone who came from that platform and now is having their own platform. And we're gonna do a little event and sell some work and give some money to charity in doing so. And I think it's gonna be fun. I think that's kind of like.
I'll give you my address for the invite so you can.
Yes. Yeah.
And you'll be there to pick us up? Okay,
yes,
great.
Yes, I will.
Well, I'm so happy and thankful that you joined me on this talk today.
Of course, it was my pleasure.
I mean, it was really fun. I mean, I've never talked to a bona fide artist before, so it was really cool. Thanks for watching Thya Unfiltered with Blanda, my guest today. Make sure to click the subscribe button and follow us on Instagram at Thya Beauty App. Thanks, guys.